You just sound really dumb when you start saying there's HIV fucking
Yeah.
in COVID.
Okay, I can't help it. You're retarded. I mean, what do you want me to do about that?
I'm sorry, Metalock. I don't know.
Like, just because they're similar doesn't mean like the implication that was originally placed was like they're like fusing HIV and Corona together.
I don't think you understand the implication.
You believe that?
Yeah, like but like where he was at, and where I think 3 other people in the chat at the time, because I think we've lost and gained a few people randomly, was like so dramatically far away from reasonable that like, I was in fucking Australia. I was in Australia for some reason.
I don't in any way doubt that I'm like the 10 times more reasonable.
Like, I'm not sad, so logically I should be happy. When it comes to emotions like that, it's like, yo, Lumos, think, like, what emotion am I feeling right now? Like, just give any.
Content.
You're content right now.
And if you get it right, okay, since you got it wrong, I'm not going to give you the $5. I was actually feeling, like, emotionally disturbed due to, like, the presence of multiple people in BC. Like, you can, like, the opposing, like, side can never, like, really, like, take a victory in that, because you're the one who holds all the cards. Like, they won't, like, they can't benefit from anything.
I think if you remove the subjective layer to that, we'll be in like conversation, right? Where we'll be able to grasp that a little bit better. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna do. Yeah. So let's just assume the premise, right? So let's assume the dichotomy of, let's just say if not P, then Q. And I say if not P, then can we all right here factually say Q?
I mean, if it's like as objective
like,
as that, then sure.
Do you not view deduction?
If everything there is quote unquote true, then yeah, I would have to. Yeah, like.
What if we assume premises though? Like, what if I say, like, let's just assume that, I guess logic is like 1 + 1 is 2. Let's just go off that premise, right? If we go off that premise, then we can deduce like 2 + 2 is 4. Because we already have a presupposition that we agree on. So in that case, that would be an objective fact relative to the premise we both agree on.
Yeah, unfortunately, that wouldn't be able to apply to your emotions.
Yeah, we're past that.
But yeah, no, the emotions was just an example of a dichotomy.
I just wanted to clarify.
Of course, I don't think that. I don't think that people can only kill 2 emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but like maybe someone like hopped in earlier and like didn't get the full context. Like, you never know, right?
But I think that we go off assuming premises, right? Like, no one's gonna be like, hey, I was at that traffic light and you like blew me off. And it's like, how do you really know that we were somewhere? You know? It's like we kind of assume that like we like share some sort of like premise on how like everything works, like from a material sense. If we do that, we can kind of come to a conclusion of what like objective truth is. Just like relative to what we all agree on. And we do agree on the premises of like matter.
I mean, facts, but in the end, that's all just like a collective like agreement on what truth actually is. Like, if you believe like all of reality is true, and in reality you mean like the real world, or like our perception of the real world, and then someone comes up to you and says, yo, actually we're all just in a simulation and this isn't actually real, then like,
of course it's real.
Okay, like, it could be true to, like, our perception.
Yeah.
But, like, from an like, it's basically, like, the idea of, like, dimensionality. Like, does 2D actually exist? As opposed to, like, for example, like, compared to, like, a 3D person? Like, does a 3D person actually exist to, like, a 4D, for example?
But the point I'm making is, if you agree on a premise, let's say mathematics, then because of that agreement, you can now be factually right or wrong. Yeah, sure, you can go back and say, hey, I don't agree on the premise. That's fine. But I'm saying, like, in the case of, for example, the 5-year-olds who don't agree 2 + 2 is 5, if we all agree on that premise, you can say, hey, you're wrong. Here's why.
I mean, yeah, like, if you have, like, a agreed upon, like, set of, like, rules and logic, then, and, like, it's an objective, like, subject, then, yeah, you'd have, like, a right or wrong, like, true or
that's
like
why you
false.
have to gauge where your sparring partner is at ideologically, because if you don't have those axioms all kind of agreed upon, then you'll never agree upon anything beyond it.
Yeah.
So gauging those is important because like it's literally pointless if we have somebody in the conversation who doesn't believe on the most principled foundational quote unquote truths we're aware of currently, like the simplistic mathematics that exist.
Yeah. And that's where you get people who try to like argue using like by this like example like different truths. Like for example, like what I just mentioned, like okay, we have an agreed upon like truth, like okay, that's set in stone. What about somebody else's truth with somebody else? So that's where people start using different ones to like confuse their opponent, and that's when like that's where you could argue like objective like absolute truth can never actually exist.
Yeah. Like if you're arguing with someone and they say like, hey, you argue about your favorite game, like my favorite game is Skyrim, and you're like, why? You know, that's a subjective argument to have. It's the best one to do that. But if you ask them why, and they say, hey, I like Skyrim because it has the biggest map area-wise, and it has the soundtrack with the most amount of songs. There, they gave you two measurable things. There, you can actually prove their subjective opinion incorrect because of a misunderstanding of information. You can say, hey, actually Skyrim doesn't have the biggest map with square feet, and it doesn't have the biggest soundtrack. Here's a game with a bigger both. So you're contradicting yourself there because you just gave, I guess, a function for what is the best game, and you filled it with favorite. Right? Was that?
I thought originally you said favorite game.
Favorite game. Yeah, favorite game. If someone says this is my favorite game because of these attributes of that game.
You could never. That is objective. I mean, if it's someone's favorite game.
But the problem was,
for it is,
he gave criteria that were debunkable.
Yes,
right.
He's not saying it's the best game. He's just saying it's his favorite.
No, but he's saying it's his favorite because it has
the metrics.
For example,
he gave for it being his favorite game. Don't make logical sense. For example, it has the longest soundtrack, but you can literally look up the soundtracks to other games, and they're longer.
I don't think it's just like if he says it's his favorite game and then cites stuff that's not true. I mean, it's either his favorite game, but it's not, right? And so it doesn't even hinge on.
I don't think you're engaging with what we're saying.
Here, wait, let me make it a lot easier. If I say Michael Jordan is my favorite basketball player because he's the tallest basketball player ever, I can say, right, if I just know he's your favorite basketball player, fuck, whatever, he's your favorite. But if he's your favorite because he's the tallest basketball player ever, I can tell you he's not. I can show you
reasons don't make sense.
Yeah. And I can show you you're illogical in believing him. So you're incorrect, even if your opinion is subjective. You're incorrectly.
But you're saying that the person really believes that their favorite basketball player is that who has the best of these particular stats, right? Because then they would change their favorite basketball player once it was exposed. But if they are just their favorite basketball player and they just gave reasons that they're wrong about, well, it could still be their favorite basketball player.
Well, no, that's okay.
My whole point is try to get those reasons.
Give me a justification that makes sense.
Yeah. Give me those objective reasons so I can attack those. And if you can continue, like if you're like, hey, but I still like Michael Jordan, you can be like, okay, but you do acknowledge he's not the tallest ever. Oh yeah, sure. That's still.
That's a concession worth taking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a concession. Yeah.
I guess.
That's the most you're gonna get from a conspiracy theory.
You're not gonna change their position from is this guy my favorite. You're just gonna force them to try and give you another justification that has more validity.
Yo, WVC we got here. WVC.
Oh, holy shit. No, I just got ganked into oblivion, boys. That was unfortunate as hell.
Hang on video, Gabe. L.
Oh my god, dude. Aatrox and Fiddlesticks just wrecked me. I'm sorry.
L. Sounds like a job.
Motherfucker showed up like a flash mob and two-shotted me. Big rip.
Flash solos.
But yeah, I don't know. Back to the whole conspiracy theory thing. I think conspiracy theories are really tough because they force you to delve into some interesting territory that oftentimes will make you very uncomfortable or just throw you in realms where you don't have a lot of information on it. And I think gauging those metrics, like we were talking, what they value, and then utilizing those values against them is wildly important because that's the only way you can really nail them down into holding a position that isn't based entirely in belief. It's okay that they have a belief that they feel on, but the important thing is to pressure them to have a position that's not just based in incorrect beliefs or just beliefs. It's okay if you believe something subjective. Well, like what conspiracy theory, for example? I think it depends.
Oh, so then you're saying perhaps you're a conspiracy theorist as well.
Well, it depends on what you consider a conspiracy theory. Can you give me an example so I can gauge your metrics for what you deem a conspiracy theory?
COVID thing was there's a lot of nefarious things.
Can you explain it more other than like there's nefarious things at play? Because that could mean like a lot of different things, right?
I know how we responded to COVID doesn't make sense with due to properties of the virus and the vaccine, and I know that people like Fauci et al. Know these things as well, and so they're either lying or, well...
Can you be more specific, because you just hit me with a bunch of vague stuff again?
What do you mean more specific? Like,
well, you said how we reacted. That could mean like 1,000 different things.
So mandates, lockdowns, these type.
Was there any mandates?
Well, they tried to push through the Supreme Court basically the.
Well, they did, but God bless the American government. That shit failed, right?
Well, they still effectively pressured enough businesses to, basically have that policy.
I mean, did they? You're saying the government did? Like, who pressured them?
So you have a social push, but you have a lot of, politicians and bureaucrats who are just voicing, what we ought to do and, how important behaving a particular way is. And then you have, actual political push to pass legislation, which, yes, eventually I think did fail in court. But, to get it that far, it would seem as though many businesses were affected by it, right? Because I don't think it would have...
Yeah, lots of businesses were affected by it, 100%. But I think, I don't understand. What's the conspiracy theory here? You're saying they acted inappropriately? Or was a virologist acting in his best interest to keep as many people healthy as possible? Can you at least view things through that lens?
Yeah, so I don't tend to say what the is. I just would say I'm pretty sure I know what isn't. So in this case, what we were told, just the mainstream, if you will, narrative behind COVID and what's all going on. I think that's definitely not true.
Like, what was it like? Are you saying that the idea that a virologist was acting in the best interest to keep as many people's lives safe as possible, albeit at the cost of private business?
I'm saying that to advocate for a mandate, for example, makes no logical sense, and I am almost certain.
It actually does. It actually does make logical sense for a virologist, because if he doesn't actively advocate for something that will keep tons of people alive, I could understand from his perspective that he's afraid of losing his job because he'll be accountable for all those lives lost, considering he is the lead virologist in the United States of America, and any action that he has within the context of a virus, everyone dying, technically those deaths are on him for not suggesting the thing that would keep the most people safe. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that had to be done 100% sure, or like 100%, because clearly it wasn't. We didn't
by that logic,
make it a mandate.
By that logic, why'd we start now? The flu's been killing people. Why don't we all just force?
Because this is far more contagious than any other version of the flu we've come across.
That's not the relevant point, because the whole point is that mandates...
Well, no, that is, because none of the other flus are as brutal as this one.
The whole reason you would mandate is to get herd immunity for those who can't get vaccinated for other like health reasons and whatnot. And the point is that if you have a endemic virus with a leaky vaccine and parts of the population you can't vaccinate, and it is so transmissible, you could never protect those people anyway. And so the idea of mandating it is insane. It's not. It's just.
Well, I mean, that sounds like more of a personal preference. From a virologist perspective, it's understandable that you'd want to do anything to keep as many people alive as humanly possible. Now, you can advocate for what you believe is correct from a virological perspective, but what you advocate for from that perspective isn't necessarily the same thing as like advocating for your freedoms or the freedom of whatever the case may be, right?
You think what is your take on the virus being made in the lab? Are we in agreement?
I don't have any evidence of that. Do you?
I can give
100%.
I'm open to that idea, but do you have anything to reinforce that?
Yeah, there's a sequence of DNA in the virus that's a good analog to something that's in HIV, which you just wouldn't get from mutations in nature.
Can you post some evidence of that, or is that just hearsay?
No, I mean,
link me something that references that, because I have never heard of it sharing any similarities to
an exact sequence of it's very similar. I'll post it.
Well, it's similar in a virus doesn't mean the same.
No, I know, but it's something that you would not get from coronavirus. I mean, it's gain of function research.
Okay, well, hit me up with a gain of function research.
So, hold on, I want to try to summarize what you're trying to say so that we can all, like, understand. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. You're trying to say that, like, COVID and the steps of COVID had a similar, like, framing as another virus, which led you to that was made in a lab, so you can logically come to the conclusion that COVID was too.
Can you guys hear me or no?
Oh, we can hear you now if you're talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you were talking,
the theory is that through Eco Health Alliance, which is like
I know what the theory is. I'm asking for the evidence of the biological similarities he has.
Two of the things that they came out with, which was like a government like from Derma saying that they do realize that it was like this. Also, I think if I could find the post again, it showed like the in 2018 like the proposal to the government saying like, hey, let us test bats and stuff. And it was in the Wuhan Institute for whatever it's called, the WIV. And they were proposing like, hey, let us test like bat coronaviruses so that we can better protect the Department of Defense and our soldiers and all that stuff.
Okay.
That's when it began. And then 2019 is like
we gotta go one piece of this at a time, right? I'm not even saying any of this is 100% no. I'm just saying I have to grapple with each one of these points individually, because they're all like very dense things you have to tackle. Okay. So first off, I'm going to wait for his proof that it has similarities to, I believe he said, HIV, and then we'll continue rolling down the list here. And sorry if I'm reacting a little bit slower, because I'm also leaking out over here, and it's just as cancerous as it sounds.
A lot of the stuff that like he's talking about like just came out on the Reddit/r/conspiracy or whatever. So like that's why he was talking about the HIV had a similarities to. I mean, I would have to find that, but like if you look at the first thing I sent you, like it's the Department of Defense, the DAR.
That's just, one of many sources. I mean, you can find, if you don't like that source, I'll get you another.
Where did you link it? My bad.
In the chat.
It's in general lobby.
Okay. Give me 1 sec so I can finish up this wave and then I'll check it out.
Are 2 of those Reddit posts?
I mean, I can go to the actual things if you want.
I imagine they contain something viable in them, for sure.
If you go to the comment section, it's from, like, they have the Project Veritas, like, over...
Oh,
like,
so we're citing Project Veritas? Oh, God,
that's
no.
why I don't like that, but, like, if you
oh,
look
no!
At the
Oof.
I mean, I'll engage with it. I'm just saying they have a very negative history of reporting falsely. You never know.
I even gonna help Lumos. I'm just saying, oof, bro. Oof.
We're just moving in a bad direction whenever we talk Veritas, but
would you think that it was randomly like, okay, we have, do you agree that there is a WIV, like a Wuhan lab that's
they
there
have a virology lab there, yeah, for sure.
And do you also agree that they were like experimenting with coronavirus on bats?
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, if you're being honest with me, I don't remember exclusively that they were experimenting on them, but I'll believe you for sure.
And so, like, would you think in a society that it's more likely that it was like a random bat that caused the coronavirus pandemic, or was it a genetically engineered version of coronavirus that was highly contagious and like made to be highly contagious and highly like all that kind of stuff?
I think there's a chance of that being the case, but I don't have any proof that connects those dots. Can you at least see a world? Can you at least see a world where potentially, because we're arguing like 8,000 levels of potential here. We have no evidence directly showing that, but potentially that it was a naturally caused thing.
There's a possibility. What I'm saying is, like, you guys didn't hear me earlier, like when I guess my mic wasn't working, but I was trying to say like a conspiracy, like you guys were saying, like it's like, well, I think a conspiracy is like believing that an organization, like say the government or something like that, is trying to hide stuff from you. That's what I believe a conspiracy is, because a theory is just like you guys are saying. But like, say like for instance, your 2 + 2 = 5 or whatever. A conspiracy theory would be like those people that believe 2 + 2 = 5 think that the organization and like the education system is trying to hide the fact that 2 + 2 actually equals 5 and not 4. That's what makes it a conspiracy theory. If
it doesn't even have to be an organization or any exclusive like body. It could be just one individual person of believing anything.
Earlier, I posted the exact definition. I believe that that some secret or influential organization is responsible for an event or phenomenon. That's like the actual definition of conspiracy. So I think that the government does hide stuff. And if it was the United States government funding a coronavirus thing that caused like millions of deaths, then obviously they don't want.
Hold on, was the American government funding the specific the Wuhan whatchamacallit? Because if I remember right, and to be fair, I haven't hardcore engaged in conspiracy memes on COVID in quite a minute, that was not what people were blowing it up as, because I have heard of this claim before.
I think originally people were trying to blame China for it, but I'm pretty sure NIH was funding it in Wuhan.
Yeah.
I do know that we do fund virology institutes in a variety of different places, but that doesn't mean we were funding that exclusive thing. Is that understandable?
If I can find it, they had like the little documents that they presented, because you have to get grants for this kind of stuff. So it was like the little documents that they presented to the government saying, hey,
I have no doubt that they got grants, but do you have evidence they have grants for exclusively altering COVID?
Yeah. I just have to find it again. I had it all up here, and I wanted to debate people before, but every time I talk about COVID, like people, I don't know. I don't completely believe. I do think the government. I work for the government. I mean, in the military, but I do know that there's a lot of shit that people hide. Like, there's a lot of shit that you guys don't.
I think that no, 100%. I think you should always be skeptical and always should check any any place of power, any body of power. I think those things are very important. But
here, I'll post it right now. I mean, to be honest, I haven't read it all, but you can kind of. I'm not trying to be like bad faith or anything. I haven't read it all, but like what you can see, like if you ever have read like a proposal or anything like that, you can kind of like read the first few pages and see that they're like asking the government like, hey, can we please like test this and stuff, and like
I have no doubt they were asking for grant money from the United States government so they can pay for their shit. That does not blow my mind at all, because there's virology institutes all across the fucking world that do that exact same thing, right? Like even in Ukraine they had one. Like that's not surprising to me whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it just was like the timeline that it was, and like that it started being out. I don't know. There's other conspiracies that are on like that, like we're saying that the CIA was the people that like eco whatever shit was like part of like a cover up from CIA, and they started releasing it. And I don't know about that kind of stuff, because that's kind of harder to prove because it's the CIA. But like we just found out, like if you've seen like the post about the CIA covering up JFK's death, then you can kind of see that the CIA is not all that good.
Do you think that just because the CIA fucks up in one field, they're like always out to do the most malicious thing? Once again, we're arguing from like a real extreme version of because they did do something negative, they should be capable of doing everything bad, or are doing everything bad, like creating COVID.
They've done multiple stuff. They've created the crack.
Just because they did shit,
mix and drugs.
Just because they did do negative things doesn't mean that they're always doing the most negative thing. For example, like, what do they have to benefit from creating COVID-19? What's the benefit there, really?
Oh, that's not for us to even know. But
yeah.
No, I'm asking, like in real time. You're saying it's not for us to know, but that's like a cop-out way to dodge the entire conversation.
It could be that they wanted the vaccines to be out to everyone because maybe there's side effects of the vaccines that we don't know of yet. And also, like, for instance, like a few years before, like right before the COVID like came out, like that was the same time that like Bill Clinton bought. I mean, fucking what's his name? Bill Gates bought grants for.
So
Moderna.
Like, is this always like? I'm just pointing out a lot of conspiracy theories have a lot of. Oh, what's the exact term I'm looking for?
Like
coincidental evidence. Well, because this guy did this thing at the same time this other thing happened, they could probably be linked with no evidence of it like 100% linking the two. There's a chance it can.
Right.
I won't deny that, but that's like a huge.
Between the line. Because when you're talking about crime and corruption, you cannot expect a bunch of empirical evidence. Right?
Okay, if you happen to walk on a street the day somebody was murdered, would you read between the lines to send me to jail? Or for me to send you to jail? No, I mean, you're kind of doing that exact same thing in the extreme.
No.
The government like doesn't want you to know shit. Then they're gonna make
nobody's arguing that's not the case. But if they really wanted to do that, how would you have even been able to put in that timeline together? Like, think about that.
Even from just a purely strategic point of view, it would make more sense to have... Because I lose nothing. Even if I am getting false positives left and right, I lose nothing by that and having a high level of skepticism.
Oh, yeah, you do. You lose all level of credibility. If you just start assuming every possibility could be the most possible possibility, is the most probable possibility.
To have a distrust for the government and our institutions, I don't lose anything by that, right? Because I can still verify, insofar as I care about like getting something or interacting with it, right? But the point is that.
Well, no, I think skepticism is okay. No, you don't gain anything in this situation. You can assume the most negative outcome. And I think it's right to be skeptical. But being skeptical doesn't mean assuming the most negative thing possible in every situation. Like COVID, for example.
Yeah, it actually is. I mean, insofar as it's just a belief you hold, and I mean, to some extent, it'll inspire your behavior. I agree. But yeah, there's basically no downside to doing this, to not trusting some.
Okay, let's say if you're wrong, you could just be spreading blatantly wrong information and telling a bunch of people lies. You don't see that as negative?
Telling a bunch of people lies? What lies? I mean, if you're lying.
Well, if you're wrong, no, not lying.
I would agree, lying is not good.
No, not lying. Unintentionally telling somebody something that's not true. I think there's a difference.
How do you know you're not doing that?
Because I base everything on raw evidence. I don't assume.
So you have no opinions or thoughts. You just whatever Google says.
No. Yeah. Hold up. I'm not just some libcuck retard, okay? Like, let's chill out for a minute, all right? I base my opinions. Okay, hold on. You're about to take a step further and sound like a real idiot there. So chill out, all right? I think that basing opinions on connecting the dots is not as viable as basing things on solid evidence. Because as I said before, you could be in the same place where a murder occurs and say that, well, Sally was there too, so Sally murdered them. I'm reading between the lines. She was the last person I saw with that guy. And you could be dooming that person, and then everybody else, you could be informing them that they should lock that person up, or worse to that person, when they don't have anything to do with the murder. I think it's important, especially as a United States citizen, to give a high evidence of proof before you start claiming very strong claims when you're just quote unquote reading between the lines. It's not that you can't be wrong. It's that you're arguing virtually nothing. I wouldn't want to go to jail based on reading between the lines, right? Would you?
People wouldn't even entertain the idea, and it was being so suppressed at the beginning. Say, like, if this was actually true, and say, like, the vaccine was actually bad for you, but all this
Who was suppressing it? Who was suppressing what?
Well, it's just the
misinformation the whole time. The government was literally asking, like, social media to suppress misinformation because it's going to kill people. But what if the vaccines were actually the thing that was, like... Because ever since the vaccines...
Well, you know what was killing people? You know what's still killing people?
Influenza.
Yeah, and COVID.
But COVID... Then, okay, so if COVID's still killing people, why are we not still isolating and going in and wearing masks and all this stuff? And why aren't we taking vaccines like crazy?
Well, because the political value of it has decreased almost to nothing because the American people got tired of it. And the only thing that gets things done politically inside our nation is the American public's will to do things, right? Like,
because, you know, people have died now. Like, now it's past where more people vaccinated have died from COVID than unvaccinated. It's past that limit.
Well, yeah, that's because a lot more people got vaccinated than unvaccinated, and
a lot more
due to a lot of people getting vaccinated, but not enough of them, we didn't completely eliminate the virus effectively across the board.
That's what I was saying.
But that never worked, because if that worked, then we would have completely eliminated the flu.
Okay, I just want to point out...
That's not how it works, though, because it always mutates and changes.
COVID's always going to mutate. It doesn't matter.
Okay, this argument's just becoming circular. I just want to point out how much of this... Okay,
circular logic.
How much of this argument is based off assumption? That, okay, we can assume that, like, for example, we can assume that, like, the government is lying. We can assume that, like, the amount of people who've died was, like, greater in the people who actually took the vaccine than not. Like, all of these are objective, but there is no proof, like, supporting
anything. There's nothing tying them together, which is important. Which is the claim which is what you guys are doing, but I don't see sufficient enough evidence to drag those things together. You're and I quote, reading between the lines, which is viable in some ways, but not always. And not in, you haven't said anything to confirm that in this specific case.
Going back to the original topic of, like, was the coronavirus created in a lab? Like, that kind of stuff could be, like, you could see, like, there's evidence that they were already doing testing in the lab. They were already, like, trying to make a more lethal version of the
evidence that points in that direction, yes. But the best scientists in the world have not proven that it was made in a lab.
There have been people that said that
I know there's people who will say it is, but I haven't seen a major virologist come out and say that.
There have been, but because
what major virologist has come out and said that it was made in Wuhan's lab?
Oh my gosh, I mean, I'll get you a list.
Please give me a list. That would be awesome.
But then when we show you, like, a major virologist, then you're gonna be like, why isn't the other people? And it's because it's like whatever the government wants the narrative to be.
You're telling me every single government across the entire world all collectively work together to negate the validity of a bunch of independent virologists?
If America,
you know how wildly complex, like, that would be, how outrageously difficult it is to get anyone to agree on anything like that?
I don't think that's the word.
Forbid, especially China's government. Why the
fuck do they give a fuck?
They got shitted on. Like, they got shitted on due to, like, their like the amount of ties cut off, like, for their globalization. They got cut off from, like, everywhere. Why the fuck would they be protecting this shit? Lol. The fuck? When COVID happened and they realized, oh, this occurred in China, there had been active, like, ties between different, like, companies in different countries who sold and exported, like, goods to China and received those things from China. So actively, they're, like, the amount of, like, exposure they have to, like, normal globalization that's worldwide, like, decreased significantly. So why would they be trying to protect, like, why would they be trying to hide something that makes them, like, sink deeper into the mud? That doesn't make sense to me, or anybody else. If you take this at face value.
Maybe the other guy followed you guys.
there could be many. Like, so China doesn't want. Remember WHO, which is like funded by China, was always saying like, "Oh, China's doing a really great job," even though they weren't reporting how many deaths were actually happening. They weren't actually like doing any.
The Chinese government doesn't tell anyone fucking anything. No one's gonna deny that.
He said that like, why would the Chinese government hide it? They already hide like all this shit. Now the United States government.
What government doesn't hide things?
Well, how's that your point though?
I mean,
point?
that.
He's talking to
mine or his?
Yours.
Yours.
You're saying
Yeah.
what government doesn't hide things. Well, how's that a case against what we're saying?
I mean, it is a case like against what you're saying because you're trying to argue, oh, China's like hiding these things. They don't have any obligation to tell anybody. Like, for example, when, like, here's like an example using like the U.S. government, for example, when Twitter got bought by. No, like, here's just an example, just to like prove that like your argument like can fall just as easily as like you made it up.
I don't
Like
know
when Twitter got. No, just when Twitter got bought by Elon, he like exposed the CIA and like the like other government like businesses that had been like using Twitter as like a backwater to like support and promote like different propaganda. So like, and they didn't tell anyone this until like Elon like exposed it. So like, just as much as like China hides things, so does like every other government. Like, you can't just logically assume, oh yeah, because they're China, like, they just won't tell anyone.
I don't know.
Have to.
I don't know if I would 100% agree with like the point you're making, but what I would say is that governments do hide things, but I don't assume that they're hiding absolutely everything.
Well,
Yeah,
me too.
You don't. There's a degree of like. Let me
find this general chat. I just got out of this game, so I'm gonna look at this article y'all link. Yeah, when do you guys ping me on that shit again? One more time?
There's a degree of like, there's a degree of likelihood. Like, I believe you guys have heard of this before. Like, okay, say it's just the idea that some things it's like, okay, it's probably likely to happen, like they did this, but like, if you're saying every single government across the entire world who had been affected by COVID had been actively trying to like prevent it, it's like,
it wasn't every government, it was China and the United States, and if they're the only people that know where it happened, and then they're the only people that have to hide it from everyone else, then that's why it's not every government hiding the secret, it's just they're the only people that know.
Why wouldn't they just stop it at the source and be done with it like about 2 years earlier?
We knew about it in the summer of 2019 as it was presumably spreading across the planet.
Okay, so once again, with that in mind, why didn't they just alert everyone, okay, it comes from here, we quarantine this section off before anything can go too crazy.
Why didn't they? Because it's like, you've got infinite solutions, and it's just like, if they're so smart, why didn't they do what I said?
Okay, no, it's because you're the one making, like, no, you guys are the ones making the claim and the assertion that, like, the government's doing this.
What is the claim, Casual?
You guys are claiming, fucking China and US are like hiding things because they were the only ones that knew. They have no reason. They would have no reason to hide anything.
Are you saying that, Metalock? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I don't claim to know
who's he talking to. Who's he talking to?
I don't know.
Okay, so at a simple Google search upon looking into this whole meme about Bill Gates giving Moderna $20 million, I'm finding out there is no proof or official reports Gates created COVID-2 Moderna. It's a publicly traded company. It's owned by many shareholders. Like, yeah, I'm not really seeing.
I never really read that kind of stuff. I was just posting stuff from the conspiracy stuff. That's why I was saying I don't really care about that. But
Okay.
The stuff that I was reading was like the other one I sent, where it was like talking about like the permission and like requesting their grant to do testing on coronavirus and all
Is
that
that
stuff.
hold on? That's Frank and Elliot's Drastic Research Files WordPress, right? Is that what you're talking about?
It was just a link from, but it was like the health, Eco Health Alliance.
You just I just have like three or five different ones that are linked in here.
And it like talks about like our goal is to like blah blah blah.
Let's see. Former VP of EcoHealth confirms Peter. Is that it?
No, you're looking at like the Reddit post. I was talking about the drastic is like the preemptive like requesting permission for
just ping me which one you want me to look at and I'll look at it.
And obviously, like, I don't know. I was just like, I think we've already agreed that like we don't know for sure until someone says. How do I ping?
True. I agree. You can just like at me specifically and reply to whichever one you were talking about. But if we don't know and you're linking me to shit you don't even believe, then like what's the point of that? Like I don't understand how it's supposed to come to a conclusion.
Testing of coronavirus going on in Wuhan at the exact same time that it got like I remember like back when it first came out, like there was like wasn't it, I really wish, but like there's so much stuff.
I don't doubt that that's true, but you're the one reading between the lines and saying it did with no evidence,
like,
right?
Like I don't know about like all the Bill Gates and all that
okay,
shit.
Can you link me? Can you link me something that's leading you to a conclusion of believing any of these conspiracy theories?
What?
I sent I replied in the own chat. I didn't send it directly to you. But that's like the Reddit post, but like that one's like the one that like if you read the first picture.
Wait, so the conspiracy theory is that a virus might have leaked from a lab that was researching viruses? Is that the big conspiracy?
Researching coronavirus.
Yeah, we know for a fact that it was researching those viruses.
We're not arguing whether they were
They're arguing if it's natural or if it was from a lab, and I said
You could go to any country in the world and find them most likely working on a common flu virus such as COVID. That would not surprise me at all.
But if they're engineering,
so what's the conspiracy here?
Coronavirus.
He's connecting the dots and saying because they were working on a coronavirus, then the virus came from them specifically.
Yeah, that sounds likely.
It could be.
It depends on how safe you think these labs are. Like, as far as I know, it's like a level 4 lab, and there's also one in Beijing. And I think SARS escaped something like 4 times, so it's not unprecedented. Also in China, and all that people are saying is maybe the bat coronavirus escaped from a lab that works on bat coronaviruses, as opposed to a human ate a bat that had sex with a pangolin, and it only jumped once, and it's super infectious in humans, but not in bats, and it jumps into other species, but it's not in bats.
Yeah, because there is the problem of the missing link. Like the coronavirus in bats was not able to infect humans, and to be able to infect humans has to be like treated in a lab and passed through mouses, right?
Let me find.
That's right, and this spreads to like dogs and cats. I think a large population of deer in America is infected with it. So, as far as I know, nothing else has been that transmissible between species, and it all points to this being not natural.
I'll just
say
my final. I'll just say my final like piece on it. This argument's gone on based off too much assumption to be like a comfortable thing that I would argue for. If you guys get what
this is a big Project Veritas
drop. Sure.
Oh fuck.
Which one?
But I would.
Wasn't there like wasn't there like a fake investigation by the WHO that said like, oh, it's super unlikely that it came from a lab, while they didn't even have access to the lab?
They said,
I think it was only 1 year after the
as far as they were aware, because keep in mind the Chinese wouldn't allow them to do a lot of things in their labs, specifically because the Chinese are a-holes. Okay, no one's gonna deny that. But if your task,
reported?
if your task, the government definitely is. But like, if your task to come to a conclusion and you have a wildly limited volume of information, I don't think it's inherently wrong for you to come to a conclusion that based on what we know, we can't prove it. I don't even think that's negative. But you can't in that document say that it is, right? Or you think it is with no evidence.
Wait, isn't it relevant that like the actors in this situation are hiding stuff actively by, for example, not giving full access to the lab?
Yes, yeah, they're being really difficult, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's because they're trying to hide a cover-up that these bats managed to escape from there and infect everyone or whatever the case may be.
Sure,
but they're just difficult to deal with in every field specifically.
Is that what it means? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I also believe the NIH was funding it, which that's why the whole like the conservatives want to prosecute fuck, I always forget people.
Fauci specifically, yeah.
Because they of the NIH like funding this and then lying on oath, saying that NIH never funded the coronavirus, which is already being proven that they were funding it. And
the thing,
I don't know.
He didn't lie. He said they didn't fund gain of function research.
Yeah, because they funded some other fucking bullshit company that funded the gain of function research. So technically, yeah, they didn't fund the research directly. So like he wasn't lying, but yeah.
Yeah, but they were funding.
Pictures are all fucking sideways. God damn it! I gotta find another link to this shit.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, people apply Occam's razor to a lot of things, but the weakness in that is if you're ignorant to it, you'll come to an ignorant conclusion because you don't have any of those other assumptions. Like, for example, if I haven't told you guys about the virus escaping from other level 4 labs in China, that would be something that you'd say, well, we all know that these labs are level 4 and viruses don't escape, like they've got protocols. So to assume that they would leak, well, that's an assumption that I'm not going to have. But if you know it's happened before, the Occam's razor gets a little bit sharper.
Project Veritas. Hold on, I gotta look up something real quick on this shit because every one of these is obnoxiously sideways, and I can't read the actual documents because I'm reading shit that says that this entire Project Veritas meme was literally designed for North Carolina and has nothing to do with that group specifically. But let me figure this out.
Oh, late. My apologies, but late Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yeah, facts.
Merry Christmas, mate.
You too.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Mm.
God, I'd have to read this whole fucking document sideways. Kill me.
Law.
Literally, I don't want to read this whole fucking thing sideways. Jesus.
Can't even read.
Yeah,
Project Veritas. Why can't you release? Why can't you release shit that's fucking horizontal? Like, come on, man.
Imagine
like, for
not
example,
reading, like,
when
sideways.
COVID first came out, people were, and I don't know if there's an answer now, but people were wondering, is it airborne? Is it not airborne? What do we mean by airborne? And it's like, haven't we used that word before? Like, don't we say some viruses airborne? Why can't we just, say whether this one is or isn't? So it
because
seems like everyone forgot how to do everything.
No, because in the scientific community, you don't assume things until you can prove them, right? That was like a lot of the big problems with some of the mistakes that happened early on within COVID, is because they had limited information. The Chinese government wasn't telling them shit, despite it starting there early. So they were going with the best guesstimates they possibly could, which is why things were so strict so early on.
Yeah.
We knew about it.
Which is why the origins is so important, right? Because then you can't say, well, we didn't know. You could say, well, this is sample, 32B, and we know XYZ about it.
Yeah, I agree. It would have been nice of the Chinese government to hook us up, but they're assholes. Like, I don't know what else to say in that department. It's not exclusive to COVID either. It's in every fucking field.
True.
They keep to themselves. They don't want nobody to know shit about how they operate.
They keep to themselves with their information and steal other
helpful
information
enough
from other
to
countries.
share the genetic code of the virus in late December 2019, and we manufactured our vaccines based on the code coming out from Chinese scientists. So, yeah, I don't know.
It wouldn't be surprising
coming out of China.
It wouldn't be surprising that if we're throwing money at a virologist institute that's studying COVID that we would be accepting those things from them? How is that crazy?
Because on one hand, you're saying they're not going to let you in to find out whether it escaped from the lab, but they are going to tell you the full genetic code of it.
Yeah, it's in their interest to profit off of everything. The Chinese government, like, that's their sole purpose, right?
I don't know. It seems like you've got a lot of skepticism in one domain, but then
no, I'm just not willing to bridge that gap without more evidence. I'm open to that being a possibility, but you're the one reading 10 steps in when you're only 2 steps forward.
So let's say in the other direction, let's say that it came from nature. What would be your evidences that it came from nature?
Until we have evidence otherwise, I assume that is the case. You're assuming.
Why? Why?
Because most viruses naturally occur in the environment. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So you would have to prove to me, considering that's how the majority of them function, without a doubt that would be the case, right? That it was manufactured. You have a bunch of dots that lead you to a conclusion.
Like no. I don't think it's the case.
You guys are connecting those dots.
No, sir. You're assuming that because it's more likely. You don't have to prove it, but I think you should have to.
Both sides are an assumption.
Yeah. No. They are both assumptions, but one is how 99% of viruses occur. That's the assumption I'm making. My side is far more understandable than, well, it was manufactured with no evidence. You guys are reading between the lines and coming to a conclusion.
99% of viruses don't act like bioweapons. So,
I mean, well,
hold on. Every virus acts as a bioweapon. That's their purpose. They literally act that way. That's the worst example you could have used.
Like
that was the definition of what Ebola. That was literally what Ebola was. Lol.
Every virus works in a unique way. Is it really surprising that we finally came across a virus that just spreads worse than the normal version of it? I don't think that's unreasonable, considering that's how they evolved.
Prove that it came from nature or a lab, but it is a fact that they were researching COVID-19 and that
because COVID-19 is a virus.
Well, I'm just saying, it is a fact that they were there researching it, right? That's just a fact. It leads you into one direction or another. You know,
it can point you in the right direction, but that doesn't mean it's true. You guys are acting as if it's true when you don't have any evidence of it being true.
It's true that they were researching COVID-19.
No. They were researching it. You're making the leap of logic, claiming that because they were reaching it, it was lab made. That's where I'm uncomfortable bridging that gap.
I wouldn't make that assumption either.
Genetically engineering.
You know, Therochats, maybe it'll become clearer if you use a bigger example. Let's say there was a new type of mutant cat, like it was running around and it was killing everything, and it's a mutant cat. And then it was found just outside of a lab that makes mutant cats. You could say, sure, species, they all arise naturally, don't they? So this one's just natural. But there's also a lab right there that makes mutant cats.
I think that could be the case, but that doesn't mean it is the case.
Yeah.
Right. Do you recognize the difference?
Pointless.
Yeah, so you'd have to demonstrate your theory that it came from nature. We can't.
No. That's how all cats come, right? They come from nature.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean,
by definition.
Even then.
But we just demonstrated
that's
not solid enough.
Immediately going with the one that's easier to prove.
I mean,
that's where all the evidence is at. You guys don't have any evidence that it is the case.
No, but both are completely possible.
Both are possible, but one's far less probable without evidence.
Hold up.
For the conspiracy.
It doesn't matter because it's not Lumos's burden of proof to prove that your answer is wrong. It's your burden to prove it's right. And with the amount of it could be and it's possible, I don't see why we're having this conversation when we all agree, okay, it was guaranteed studied in a lab, but we don't know for sure, so we can just we'll hopefully get clarification later. So why don't we just drop this pointless ass?
No. To bridge the gap, I don't want you guys to think I'm being 100% unreasonable. I think that line of logic leads us to the point to where we should investigate. I think it's important to be doing those things. But can you understand where my analogy from earlier, where it was just because Sally was near somebody you knew that got shot, doesn't mean that Sally was the shooter, right?
Right. But, there's more to it than that. So when you get
okay, hold on. You're saying there's more to it than that. But the problem is there's nothing solid linking that. Because if I'm going to convict somebody of a crime or claim somebody indeed did 100% do the crime, the burden of proof for that is higher.
Well, we agree that we don't have 100% proof.
It doesn't exist.
Okay, true, but you guys are. I feel like you guys are pushing. Well, hold on. Do you agree that viruses naturally evolve, adapt, and mutate in nature? That is the most. That is. Hold on. You're right. It's not evidence of that. Do you have evidence of that, or is this all assumption?
What? That it's not what?
Yeah, that it's not naturally occurring.
No, I said there's no evidence to prove that it's naturally occurring or not.
Hold on. There's literally nothing saying it's not. Do you have any evidence it's not? Because that's how all viruses naturally occur.
You have evidence it is? Oh, we could do this all day.
Well, that's how literally viruses work. Like, all the science is on my side.
No, that doesn't fly, sir. You have to prove that this specific virus...
I have to prove that it naturally evolved. Can you explain how I would do that? Can you explain that?
Well, yeah, we've done it many times with other
viruses. I need you to explain how we prove that it naturally evolved.
Yeah,
I don't know. I would love to figure that out.
Okay, there's no way to prove something naturally evolved.
No,
there's no way to prove it didn't naturally evolve.
We won't believe either side then.
Okay, so hold on. Do you agree that all viruses naturally evolve in the wild?
No.
No.
Some are genetically involved.
Some are modified.
Okay, so you think that just because not all do, COVID, which has 19 variants, doesn't naturally evolve and change?
Wait, no, but sir, you don't even believe that virus can evolve naturally because you just said that.
I do. No, I do. I am saying that's my claim.
Entire premise, bro.
You just said that there was no way to prove that. So how can you believe that?
There's a difference between proving something naturally evolved versus proving something is manufactured, right? Something naturally evolving shows a biological inheritance, right? That is natural. That's what everyone's established. There's nothing proving. Hold on, no. There's no way to prove that it is 100% manufactured.
Natural or manufactured.
Okay, you know what? I'll take back what I said because I was wrong, okay? Whenever it comes to things being naturally evolved, how do we know it naturally evolved? Because we gave it a variant of the other 19. It shares all the same biological data. I can't prove to you that they made it in a factory. There's no evidence of that. Do you have some?
There's evidence that they were researching.
There's a lot of evidence.
Okay, hold on. Proof that somebody was researching something does not mean that COVID came from that.
Yeah, I know. It gives you a fucking inclination that they...
Okay, it's something worth investigating for sure, but that's not proof. You're acting as if it's proof.
I know. That's not...
I guess the proof becomes
the amount of circular reasoning.
Yeah, literally. We're just running in circles on this. Like, I don't know how to.
Theoretrats. I'm not.
It's because you're dug into your position. It doesn't. You can't prove that it's natural.
Summary of this article, but ProPublica published an article.
Go ahead and link it down low.
Yeah, I will. It's a good summary of kind of an analysis that they did of like internal documents from the lab, and I was very adamant that COVID was of natural origins in the early beginnings. But this article did a number on my beliefs in that. It shows that there was a very complex and kind of irresponsible situation going on at the lab. Yeah, I did. It's in General Voice. It's really long, though, so you won't be able to just scroll through it. It's like a 10-page probably article.
And again, your only evidence for natural occurrence is most of viruses occur in nature.
Yeah.
Okay,
viruses can be
That's the standard. They can be manufactured, but that doesn't mean it is. I agree that it's possible.
But no one's sitting here saying that it is, unless they are. I don't know.
I think half the people in the chat are saying it is.
Yeah, so when it comes to technology, When it comes to the SARS pandemic
time.
that
Dr.
occurred
Fauci
in the
did it.
early 2000s, we were able to identify like the actual virus in animal vectors that led to the SARS outbreak. Unfortunately, despite literally going and like culturing every single animal, actually I don't think it was every single animal. I think they tried to culture every single species of animal within the Wuhan wet market, and they weren't able to find COVID in them. So like it doesn't have the clear natural basis that we were able to find in the earlier SARS pandemic. Not to say that, you know, evidence or absence of evidence is evidence of absence, but it's to say that it's not quite as clear cut as the earlier pandemic was, and there isn't really any like solid concrete evidence in favor of the natural origin. And there isn't solid evidence of the Wuhan lab origin either, but there is a lot of like circumstantial evidence showing that there was like a pretty dire scenario going on at the Wuhan
I agree.
Institute.
I agree that there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that points in that direction. Like I said earlier, I think it's something we need to look into for sure, and we are doing that to the best of our capabilities. We're trying to work with the Chinese government as best we can, but like I said earlier, they're a-holes and don't want to work with us. But just because there's circumstantial evidence, to me, doesn't indeed mean connect those dots.
If you look at the ProPublica article I linked to you, what was interesting about it that none of the articles that I'd seen had done yet is they got like internal documents and went to someone who's like an expert in kind of like Chinese party talk, because essentially in China, like how the government works is if they have an issue, like they won't say explicitly that there's an issue. They have like a certain language that they use to say like, you know, we need to rise up in the face of the difficulties of the time, and like they kind of kind of hide it within this sort of language. And so this article breaks down that sort of party talk and shows that there was like some weird sort of going-ons within the laboratory, not only around the time of like the actual outbreak, but also in the years beforehand, showing like there was
they had issues all the time, 100%. Not even arguing that. I think they had a what the fuck was it, SARS that broke out like a few years even before. I agree with that 100%. I'm not even denying that.
What wasn't there a thing where the fucking from like the Wuhan lab, like the US pulled out their funding because, you know, they like cooperate with like most fucking countries on, you know, research like stuff like this, and I actually pulled that like 1 or 2 years before like the outbreak because of like lack of safety. Wasn't that literally a thing?
Okay,
I think so. They did have lots of
even if that's true, once again, that can be true, but I'll read through this article for sure, because this is a massive ass article. I'm still not sure, just because they had problems in the past, that means it was the case this time.
I just find it funny.
Again, like the article itself, I think, says like we did not find any conclusive evidence that like this came from the lab, and we probably will, right?
It's true. Like that's fair
because of the reality of like the Chinese government hiding the situation.
I mean that's what I've been saying. 100%.
I think this is the best kind of circumstantial evidence that we've seen so far. It's a really like enlightening article.
As long as we agree it's majority circumstantial, that's fair. As I've stated earlier, I think that researching into that is not a bad idea. Pushing the Chinese government further on that is not a bad idea. But once again, I feel like the general context of this conversation is people have been taking that circumstantial evidence and saying that is the case. It is lab leaked. That's how this conversation started.
Well, I just find it funny how this entire thing happened with, first we both agree, like, oh, it's circumstantial, and like there's no way to prove it was lab made, there's no way to prove it was natural. And then and then we both agreed that it was like they were definitely investigating like it in a lab. And then we somehow went back to arguing about the thing that we had both already agreed upon, which was we cannot prove either. I just found that was funny for like 30 fucking minutes.
Just want to make sure that, like, you know, people are distinguishing between lab leak and lab made, right? Like, it doesn't seem like this is something that was, I don't know. from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like it's something that was lab made, but like they were doing work on it or they had it in the lab to like,
okay,
maybe work with, but it wasn't like created by like.
Maybe I'm misremembering. I'll check the VOD to be 100% sure, but I swear the context of this was it was made in a lab. There was evidence tying it to it being with like HIV.
Yeah, I got that too. I think
that was like an early thing where people were like, yeah, no, there's like HIV genes in the COVID thing.
As long as we're stepping away from it being lab made 100% for sure, because that's originally what I was arguing against.
I think we're all on the same page on that. Wouldn't we all agree?
No.
Hello?
I think it's a distinction without a difference because no one's making a virus from the ground up. They're taking existing things and they're modifying it, right?
Do you have evidence of that?
Modifying
we're all on the same page.
That's clearly what.
Yeah, the issue is that they have evidence that the issue is that they have evidence that they were doing gain-of-function research on like bat coronaviruses.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fucking scientist. I can't.
Yeah, because it can only be a lab leak if it came from a lab, right? If they're doing stuff on it.
That was like the whole that was a whole like foundation of this controversy or like conspiracy is that there like actually is proof that like the Eco Health Alliance was like funding gain of function research for background.
We just argued for like an hour and a half.
We can't know, guys.
Like we just argued for an hour and a half on something that everyone agreed to like 5 minutes ago, and y'all are saying no, we don't agree. Like, bruh.
We're not a monolith.
Certified bruh moment. Unadulterated bruh moment. Yo, what's up, Don? Big Don hopping in. Dubs.
Don Juan.
I don't know. I'll take a look through the article. I look forward to reading it, and I'm completely open to anything pointing that there's more issues with them, that they fucked up, that they're having problems. All of those things I think are understandable. For it to be lab made, which is mainly what I was arguing, just so we're all on the same page. That's what I'm arguing because I haven't seen evidence proving it was lab made. If it leaked
from the ground up,
whether they were intentionally mutating viruses, and then, I don't think they were intentionally mutating viruses to make them more lethal, which was the original intent.
But
I heard
that's like the proven. That is the actual proven thing.
Yeah, not more
that's
lethal,
like
but more infectious amongst humans. That is true.
That is the thing that was like confirmed with evidence to be true.
They were. That is what gain of function research is, specifically with COVID-19.
Okay.
Yeah, to kind of juxtapose the two, like one is you've got a virus that's very infectious to humans from bats and that arose naturally, or it escaped from a lab where it was existing, right? And so it's just if you think that the lab is inescapable, which it obviously isn't, right?
No, I agree there's issues with their safety concerns, so I'm not arguing against that.
Like, you can probably give it probabilities. So, what's yours, Dara? Like, what % lab leak versus what % natural?
I should not have done that.
Just in your estimation.
If you have anything other than 50-50, you're a fucking idiot.
Ooh, disagree.
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I think it's
that was
taking it a little too far.
You're dumb. I think that it's probably more likely that something came from nature, but it's very possible that it also came from the lab.
I mean,
I'm not a scientist.
I think both are a possibility. I just haven't seen solid evidence it has yet.
For either.
I think more likely.
But don't. You're right. Everybody.
I mean, if you don't think there's evidence for either, we've seen multiple different viruses and bacteria cause different pandemics across history, right? Obviously, nature produces sort of pandemic and viruses.
Thank you for being a rational person in chat. Who's talking right now?
The question is well, in this case, was it one of those weird times where it came from nature, or was it a case of it leaking from the lab because people were being irresponsible?
Yeah.
Dude, I could have sworn I tried to argue this and have everyone just agree to this, but everyone just said no, more arguing. I could have sworn that.
It happened a bit.
I'm definitely malding out.
Wow. I think the arguments were because, like you said, like there's no proof that it came from. I mean, like obviously proof is like as the same way I can say like there's no proof that you know for sure that it came naturally. There's also no proof for sure that we know it came from the labs. I guess like
Yes.
That burden doesn't make any
basically
sense,
this
though.
conversation is fucking retarded.
Yeah, like that burden doesn't make any sense.
I can't speak for what Lumos's intentions were with like what he was trying to say. At least I know what I was trying to say. I was trying to argue that we have no like evidence of either, and since it's all like based off like no like distinct evidence.
Yeah.
That's a good charging, am I right?
What do you think? What do you think? What do you think this study says? I'm super confused by what you mean in the chat here.
What study? Like the ProPublica article?
I'm talking to Metalog.
Saying that it got the sequence from HIV-1.
This study is saying that
not.
there is no.
That's what I said earlier.
There is no HIV. It did not contribute at all to the SARS-CoV.
Literally.
Right, which is not what I'm saying.
What are you saying then?
Then why link it?
No, hold on. Let's get one thing straight. So, is there a sequence in COVID-19 that is similar, whether or not it accrued it from HIV or not, that is similar to the particular sequence in HIV?
According to this, no. Do you have a study that refutes that?
Yeah.
Okay, link it.
Then why did you link that one in the first place? What was the point in linking that one?
He linked that one.
Well, then link the study that
Yeah,
says
link the
it's
good
in
one.
there. Link the study that's in there, and not a preprint. Yeah, that's what I've been asking for. Because you seem to think that you seem to think that the HIV virus contributed or is within. Part of it is within the COVID virus.
I've never heard of this fucking
I
theory.
haven't seen any evidence for that. Until you provide a study
This
that
is
says
fucking
no,
crazy.
then I can't. Why should I believe you?
Because, well, we can't even have a conversation because we can't even agree on what's what. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it is. It is the genomic sequence from HIV.
You're saying there's one that's really similar. So show me a study that says that. It's not a preprint.
Give me a second. I'll get you your study.
Yeah, so it's here. I'll just link one in chat. It's true that there are like genomic sequence or like genes within the COVID-19 that are similar to some.
You literally
like,
just
HIV
linked
genes.
the same thing that I linked.
Oh, did I earlier? Okay,
Yeah.
well you can read it and it talks about it in detail if you actually go through it.
Ooh,
There are like a lot of
how's-
similarities to some of the HIV things, but they also find that they naturally occur in like other viruses and they're not specific to HIV in particular.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
what the fuck does that even mean? And how does anyone in this chat have any like brain to be able to decipher that? We're not scientists.
What does that mean?
Read the words on the paper.
It wears the same
Just read
socks
'em.
as HIV, but a lot of viruses also wear the same
No, I
socks, too.
understand, but like, how can you be talking about this shit when you really don't know what you're talking about?
I mean, I have a
People have varying
degree in
degrees.
biology and almost a medical degree, so I'm pretty confident that I know what I'm talking about.
think even if-
Not you.
But even if you don't know like science and stuff, it's still good to read the kind of stuff because for instance, like the whole like lab thing. If I would just like listen to like what doctors say and then they say like, oh, it didn't come from something, and then like that's all you listen to, and you don't. Or if there's two different doctors and one doctor says this thing and the other doctor says that thing, then you have to just gonna believe like you have to be able to like read both things and come up with your own opinion still.
You just sound really dumb when you start saying there's HIV fucking in COVID.
I can't help you that you're retarded. I mean, what do you want me to do about that?
I'm sorry, Metalock. I don't know.
Like just because they're similar doesn't mean like the implication that was originally placed was like they're putting like they're like fusing HIV and Corona together.
I don't think you understand the implication.
What's the implication?
The original belief was that
This is
because of these 4 genes. Oh, well, he muted himself and he left. It's okay.
Okay, well, at least we know his argument was so good he ran away. That's how you know it's a W.
I've never even heard of that HIV shit before. Never.
Well, like, I understand there being, like, similarities in a variety of different viruses and stuff like that. Like, that's not even mind-blowing to me. But, like, the way he's like, phrasing it is so, like, inherently, like not unhinged, like, it's so loaded, right? Because he's making it sound as if they're, like, fusing HIV and Corona in Wuhan to, like, create this super AIDS virus that's, like, beyond imagination. And it's like, we're so far away from the realm of reality.
What a fucking genome sequence is, dude. Like, that's what I meant by you're not a scientist.
Yeah, that was my original arguments. I was like, dude, like, I was originally arguing against people fusing HIV into, like, the coronavirus. Like, how did we get from, like, that to maybe there was a lab leak? I don't know. Like, maybe there was a lab leak. I'm not even opposed to that. But, like, I know these guys weren't creating HIV corona. Like, come on, bro. Like, what the fuck?
My mic wasn't working, and like back when I think like I said I wanted to bring up something controversial, and I started the whole conversation, and I said like I think COVID was in a lab, and then like I switched to like a different headset, and my mic wasn't working at all, and then he started talking about like all this other stuff, and then I was like trying to say like no, I just want to stick to like the lab part.
Yeah, let's just talk about that. Yeah, because like there's an interesting conversation to be had there, especially with the limited information we got from China.
So,
it's so difficult to really ground down, but that's a far more like reasonable argument than like we're fusing HIV with corona.
Fuse HIV.
Bro, we're so far removed from
it. If you want to talk about the lab
thing, I know you don't understand what
you're talking about. If you want to talk about the lab thing, I'll just kind of scroll through this ProPublica article and try to remember the important parts that I found when I read it the first time. Like, here's one kind of quote that kind of is a little bit damning. And then in the fall of 2019, the dispatches took a darker turn. They referenced inhumane working conditions and hidden safety dangers. On November 12th of that year, a dispatch by party branch members at the Biosafety Lab 4 laboratory appeared to reference a biosecurity breach, according to the interim report. It quoted, "Once you have opened the stored test tubes, it is just as if having opened Pandora's box. These viruses come without a shadow and leave without a trace. Although we have various preventative and protective measures, it is nevertheless necessary for lab personnel to operate very cautiously to avoid operational errors that give rise to dangers. Every time this has happened, the members of the Zhengdian Lab party branch have always run to the front line, and they have taken real action to mobilize and motivate other research personnel." So when you read something like that happened a month before COVID came out, it's kind of like
I'm not even denying that there was potential for the lab leak. Yeah, I think there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that places us in that direction.
Dumb, bro. Like, I don't think we believe that you believe that.
Yeah, like like where he was at, and where I think 3 other people in the chat at the time, because I think we've lost and gained a few people randomly, was like so dramatically far away from reasonable that like I was in fucking Australia. I was in Australia for some reason.
I don't in any way doubt that I'm like the 10 times more reasonable position of what they were holding. They were probably saying what I was saying, but with confidence and like with certainty, right? But all of this is, as we've already gone over many times, like circumstantial and you know, it's all just
no one knows anything.
This kind of adds up.
There's a few facts.
There's enough. There's enough evidence to be like, yo, I think we should look more into that. Given we won't get that opportunity just because of the Chinese government. But like, I'm okay with that position. I don't think that position's even radical, if I'm being 100% honest. But like I said, that's like 10 steps removed. As I kept telling them, you're taking 2 steps forwards and claiming you're 10 steps down. Like, we're just so far removed from with anything believable, just because we have an inkling that there might have been a leak.
But like, I was trying to like also like bring up the point of like, if you just watch how China reacted, and the fact that, I mean, they're pretty much like trying to like burn bodies and hide like that anything was going on, and they also weren't reporting like how many actual deaths there were, and they were trying to like hide everything from the world, which you would think if something like that happened and they're trying to hide it from the world, if it was like a natural born like virus that just happened randomly, then I think they would ask for international help, be more open.
No. Never in a million years. Never in a million years would the Chinese read. I think everything to do with that virus or any virus is seen as from their perception as a weakness. And so I think it's in their own interest to want to hide those things. Could they have been hiding those things specifically because it was due to that lab leak, yes. But if it was any other virus, even if it wasn't as contagious, it was just on a small scale, it wouldn't blow my mind to also see them be doing very similar things. Though it's very circumstantial, and it does raise eyebrows for sure. Like, I wouldn't pass that off, but it could be other things as well.
Well, them pushing zero COVID policy really, really has hurt them. You know what I mean? When's the last time you've seen like Chinese people rebel against the CCP? Like, that's crazy. When they're spraying disinfectants on the airport runways just because you don't know how to control this virus, I mean, you obviously know that. I mean, they're just doing it out of a control issue, not so much anything else.
It's not the worst thing. The worst thing is they just never let their population get infected at all.
Yeah.
And so now they're fucked.
Yeah, now they're suffering huge losses because they have absolute zero immunity in some sections of their major cities, and it's cleaning
shitty
them
vaccines.
out. Yeah,
America #1.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what they tried to bootleg shit we were doing, and guess what? That shit just doesn't work. God bless America, baby.
If you guys think COVID was bad, just wait till you get COVID too.
Yeah.
Oh shit, I'm alive.
Shit, we already on COVID 20.
COVID patch 1.1.
Because Omicron is like insanely more infectious. So they just sort of
really infectious.
And they're just like, God, you poor bastards.
Yeah.
Actually, not you poor bastards. Hopefully, this causes the collapse of the Chinese Communist Party. But
hopefully it destroys the government, not the
people.
people. Yeah, hopefully the government, not the people. That's like the best thing you can hope for in such an unfortunate problem. And they're dealing with so many cultural problems, which is kind of bleeding into this as well.
Yeah,
it's causing so many issues with their government right now. There's like a really anti-establishment faction billowing in the underlings of all the major cities within China right now. It's really crazy to watch in real time. Whether it's the sexist the issues they're facing, whether it's the COVID problems they're facing, whether it's the economic problems the unfortunate are facing. Yeah, it's just it's such a boiling
policy,
boiling point of problems for them. It's all just rising up.
Yeah, that one-child policy is really fucking them over. I mean, it's gone now, but it
was well too late when they disbanded it anyways. It was well too late.
Right.
The population's in the 40s and 50s right now. They're fucked.
Yeah.
Not to bring not something that I believe or anything, but just to put the question out there. Do you think that it's China's doing it because they have the opportunity to use the vaccines we're using and stuff like that and better policies? Do you think it's more of a control of their people because they can lock them in a door and put
absolutely it's a public health risk?
It's an ego thing. It's like a image thing. It's we can destroy this virus and it won't hurt our population. But the thing is that vanity bit them in the ass 2 years later. So that's the other reason why they didn't tell anyone about the fucking virus until it was too late, because they didn't want to be have their country be seen as a dirty country,
Yeah, because their image is very, very, very important to them. That's all they care about is how they're perceived, because they're supposed to look strong, mighty, and unbreakable. And so any sign of weakness to them is negative. Power. Yeah, an economic powerhouse that the world should bow before.
Yeah, because I remember. Man, I don't want to say it. Never mind.
I'd like to see their military.
No, because first off, I have ADHD, so I can never remember anything. But back when coronavirus was first coming out, I remember there was deaths from the people that worked in the lab, because they're some of the first people that got the coronavirus.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then there's the doctors talking about that, and also they're being pretty much killed by China also. Because they didn't want anything they say to get out. So I'm not even sure if anyone that worked in the Wuhan lab is still alive today.
Yeah. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me.
One of the best things about our privatized healthcare system in the United States is most of the great doctors in China come to the United States. Let's go.
Yeah, wow. Got some of the best virologists in the world, even though apparently we can't trust our virologists for anything, according to a lot of people. It's bro, look what they accomplished.
But all that, you know what I'm saying?
Funding the fucking lab.
Yeah, that's
no, I mean, are you saying should we trust the government virologist or the singular virologist that's at Harvard?
I think that there's a difference between focusing on one virologist But when there's a pantheon of virologists who all believe in something, unless you believe a conspiracy on such a large scale that you believe virologists across multiple organizations, states, countries, etc., are all like working in unison, like that it's so unbelievably insane to believe.
Is bullshit.
Yeah, like there's no way you could believe something on such a large scale. Like
So,
it's just crazy.
My take on this kind of stuff is like any individual virologist has the education to have whatever take they want, but we normie fucks, that's like their debate, not ours. It's just like we'll just do, unless it's like very like contentious, like 50-50 or some shit, you know. You should probably just go with their consensus. You know, if it's like over 80%.
This shit is so like it's so wildly complex and difficult that the average person just can't comprehend these things. And it was like the guy earlier who was like citing
continued college education. I mean,
it's like the guy earlier who was literally citing the HIV combo, and it's like, yo, wait a minute, like that what you linked me doesn't even fucking say what you think it does.
That
Like,
hurt me so much.
You're so far removed from believing something true that like you're just literally reposting shit you found online. And that was like the first, I think, 3 or 4 links I literally dug through for that guy. Is it was like Project Veritas and like 16 other things that I looked through, and I could just like pick apart random things in it and be like, yo, this just doesn't make any sense.
I might have
To be fair,
I might have been me.
I mean, like,
and I read it or agreed with it.
well, like, to be fair though, like 3 of them, like Kenneth, Shade Soul, and like Metalock, all fucking dipped because like they got folded up so bad. Like,
yeah.
Well, it sucks to have your viewpoints challenged, and it sucks to be proven wrong, especially when you're pulled out so hardcore on the spot. But you know what? Hopefully that keeps happening to that person, and that keeps happening to that person, so we can change their mind. So back to the original context of the conversation before all of this started. Hopefully he gets hit by multiple people who are going to check them on the really stupid shit that he's presenting, and maybe he'll finally open his mind to a potentially different viewpoint of not just, and I quote, reading through the lines in the most extreme situations and posting just absolutely garbage links that don't make any sense.
When he was like, when you were like, all right, post me a study, he was like, all right, I'll find you a study. And I could tell right as he said that,
it was gonna
fucking
be
lost.
It was gonna be one of those. I was like, all right.
He left like 5 minutes
I'm just
later.
saying. I'm just saying that was textbook. That was textbook what I was saying like way before that art in conversation about like how to ask questions. That was straight up textbook. But man, just fumbling and shit. Like it was, oh bro.
Do you think it
word for
He
word?
was confusing the shit out of me with that HIV shit, bro. I thought it was crazy.
Bro, I thought I was an infinite Tsukuyomi for a minute. I was like, what is happening, bro? What do you mean? I've never heard of
anyone
this shit.
talk about that shit.
Oh, this is some next generation shit, bro. What the hell?
Do you think that if it was from a lab, do you think like the CIA or FBI would have known that kind of stuff?
I heavily doubt it, considering
If they
all that
do
shit
know,
was happening
they
in
probably
China.
can't leak that they know, because then it'll burn a bunch of their fucking spies.
What do we mean by from a lab, though? Like, COVID-19 was fully built from the ground up in a lab, or
No.
COVID-19 was
That it
brought
was,
in
like-
from the nature and then it
That,
like worked on.
That we have evidence that it was released from the lab at the bare minimum. If you want to take a
Okay.
more extreme argument, I'm not going past that. I could buy that it was released from a lab accidentally, like for sure. That is potential.
Or
I don't
purposefully.
I don't think the Chinese government.
Possible.
I don't think the Chinese government would have doomed their
I
entire
don't think so either.
population on purpose. That's why I'm putting at least faith, because if the Chinese government wants their people for one thing, it's labor. And the more of them die, the less people they have for labor.
Also, if it was a bioweapon, like why wasn't it
Why would
released
it be
in the
on
United
their
States on,
yeah?
like,
Why
a
would it be on
chicken
their
farm?
lands?
Like, actually, the best thing they
No,
could have
yeah, I
done.
know.
Here's the best thing they could have done. They could have taken like a virus from like a chicken or like a cow, and then release it in the United States and be like, the Americans with their dirty fucking meat. Because that's like a meme all around the world. It's like all the Americans.
They
have
would
the
use it
horrible
as a
fucking meat.
political. They would use it as a political weapon specifically, and it like back to us talking about them trying to save face and looking strong and looking like the mean tough guys that are so badass and shit. They would never in a million years unleash that upon themselves. That's like the biggest death sentence in my opinion.
Yeah,
ever.
that is dumb.
Unless they had like a specific cure, that would have been
Unless
funny.
they had,
released the virus.
if they did, they sure as fuck didn't use it. Clearly they didn't fucking use it if they had it.
Unless they had enough of a population to where it wouldn't matter.
Oh my god! At least for memeing, at least for past the lol. They literally did the fusion dance with
I don't think we are, because like I'm being
AIDS and fucking Corona.
Saying.
Holy shit!
I'm Rona black pill, bro. That was a bioweapon.
Okay.
I swear to God. I swear to God. I swear to God, like 3 hours ago. 3 hours ago, like
it was a Chinese bioweapon. They committed a global terrorist attack.
Dude, like 3 hours ago, I was literally
on themselves.
Like, okay, so I was like, okay, we agree on this, and that. We've conceded that we don't have enough evidence for either side, or like the possible evidence for either side. We should just leave it at that. Since we
I'm
both,
not sure if you're.
agree we can't do any of that.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with communist ideology, but it does, innately require the suffering of its own people in order to achieve its goals. So yes, they would sacrifice themselves. In order to destroy
Alien, the walking meme over here. Holy shit!
Yeah.
What? No, I'm serious.
He's kind of spitting facts though.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
spitting facts,
no one's saying that there aren't some relative truths to that, some parallels. But I don't think the Chinese government unleashed a bio bomb.
What relative truth? Wait, well, hold on. What relative truth do you think that there is there? Can you explain that to me? Because I'm kind of curious.
Well, that I believe you said. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe you made a good point.
That communism requires some level of suffering to enmesh like a society or populace underneath your boot, right? Is that not what you said?
So like so like I said,
the context
I said communism requires the communism or Chinese communism in particular.
Bro, we know what you said. We know.
Yeah, I just rephrased it.
It imparts some harm on its own people in order to destroy its enemies.
Do you think that it unleashed COVID onto its people on purpose? That's the context of the conversation.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, good to know you're just as goofy as I thought you were in real time. Let's go, big double, big W.
We respect his views. So
I respect the view of laughing at him.
Where did it come from?
Yeah, the Wuhan lab.
The Wuhan lab, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
I'm just saying, after
factual evidence.
Does anybody here actually believe what I just said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
when you say things with confidence, people believe it, regardless.
Well,
yeah.
I'm just saying, bro. Like after collecting everything that happened and that we all agreed on, 2 seconds later, everyone was like, no, let's go back and argue about the things.
Well, yeah, and the Chinese government was notoriously using during the pandemic notoriously using gnomes as super spreaders in order to spread the coronavirus, right?
Yeah, gnomes.
Do you ever stop interrupting, bro? I swear.
I mean,
well, you're not really saying anything. I'm obviously.
They do dig tunnels
about this than you do.
You sound like fucking.
Okay.
This motherfucker sounds.
Who's that Jew?
Did you just say I'm a Jew? Excuse you.
What?
Ben Shapiro. You sound like
I heard
Ben
that
Shapiro.
Yeah, he's not cool with that kind of
Ben
stuff.
Shapiro?
Hey, I wouldn't take that, bro. Whoa, alien, you gonna take that? Are you gonna take that over there? I wouldn't.
Yeah, you sound like Ben Shapiro, motherfucker.
Oh, come on. Give him more credit than that. Give him more creddit than that. His voice is actually
You sound
deep.
like Ben Shapiro with a deeper voice, motherfucker.
Yeah, his voice is actually deep. Don't downplay alien like that.
You sound like Ben Shapiro if he had balls.
Yeah.
So it's so funny because when I talk in DGG, they accuse me of sounding like Ben Shapiro, and then when I talk to the alt right, they accuse me of sounding like Destiny.
I
don't know what it is.
It's just the fast talking. It's literally just the fast talking.
Yeah, you have
vocally ambiguous.
You got the Ben rhythm.
The Ben rhythm. What is the Ben?
God damn.
You're like, well,
the way Ben Shapiro talks, he has like a sort of like rhythm he talks with.
He kind of has like a specific rhythm whenever he talks, which he kind of holds on to certain words.
Doesn't he talk more like this? He's
well, yeah. Your voice, your voice is just a little bit lower whenever you do that.
You're sad.
Not the tone, it's the rhythm.
That's what he sounds like.
Wow.
It's the cadence of your voice and how you carry yourself throughout the sentence.
So I think that you just have like poor maybe audio recognition, and you just have like a difficult time distinguishing between human voices, which is common among people who have low EQ, but that's okay.
EQ? What? Do you?
He just said you were hearing level. He just said you were hearing level. Damn.
Headphones, bro. Damn.
Yo, Q, Don, y'all hear Lumos saying, yo, me personally, I wouldn't let that slide. Y'all hear that?
Yeah.
Y'all hear that earlier?
You let it slide for a while.
Take notes.
That's funny because I noticed you didn't say shit before this, but yeah, you got it.
Nah, I just needed that verbal confirmation that you were capping earlier.
I'm gonna pop off here, boys. It's been a blast.
Same.
So for you and everyone else at home, we'll catch you next time.
Yeah,
Later.
Been a blast.